Yeah, come forward, sorry. We are live, back into the council reports, and we're up to 8.8 rates report and rates resolution. So an important time for our council, and one that happens each year, but nonetheless incredibly important and big impacts on our ratepayers. So it's kind of a final step in a process. So is there anything else we need to say? No. Any questions? Yep, Councillor Newcombe.
Just on the general rates, I think when we did agree to put them up, we agreed to an 18% increase. I'm just interested to see how we managed to get to 22%. I realise there might be some formulas and things in there that do that, but perhaps it needs some explanation.
Yeah, it was the 18% was total rates, so it was general and targeted. So obviously there was we were trying to they were trying to be roughly about the same, but I think from memory the general portion was slightly higher. Yep. So it is what it is. But the 18% that was that amount we always talked about was total, not just general.
Any other questions? Yep, okay.
I've got two, and I appreciate we've got no choice today with this really. I think I'm correct in that we have to decide this before the 30th of June. Yeah. So what concerns me is there are two rates in here that I think I'd read my rate papers that I hadn't realised there was going to be substantial effect on. And one is Class B, it's page 231. Class B on the Dunedin transport rate, which looks like a really substantial increase from 5,900,000 to 7,069,000. And the other one is the rural water quality rate, which again has gone up 102%. Now, I don't think that the last one is substantial on any one property. That won't be particularly, or was that highlighted, that second one?
The rural water quality. Yeah. So you will see the rural water quality is included in the example graphs that were attached with the report. It's a rate that is based on, I'm sure it's capital value. Yeah.
Yeah. So that covers it covers all the catchment group and liaison stuff. So there's a couple of reasons for that. Is that a lot of that work over the LTP, and we're now going into year 3, we had utilised reserves and then diminishing reserves in year 1 and 2. So the reserve use drops out completely in year 3. And there was an increase in that work in year 3 as well.
I'm not worried about what the work they're doing. So I just want to check, because the way this came through when I read it, or maybe I haven't cross-referenced enough my other papers, is that was that in the long-term plan, that 102% increase?
Yep.
Yeah, so that is consistent with.
Yep.
Sorry, and that's yeah.
Yep. So there hasn't been a change to what we're doing. It's just that's how we had it in the LTP with the use of reserves early on.
Yep.
And the integrated catchment work had a step up at year 3 as well.
No, that's okay then. If it is consistent with that, although the numbers look scary, it's mainly paragraph 29, or I think it relates to 28. For another debate is the 3.75% differential on classes, because we don't do that in Queenstown, but that's a different debate next week or some other time. But was again the substantial increase in the Class B foreshadowed in the long-term plan?
Yeah, it was. So the LTP still had again, transport rates were probably through the LTP were going up sort of 20% per annum. The reason why that one's higher is if you actually have a look, the Class A is still going up. Class B is going up more, but there's more in Class B. Class B is so I would have thought I haven't done the calculation, but is the percentage roughly the same?
19 is who do.
Yeah, so it's pretty similar. So so that's sort of what I would have expected. It's just the fact that the actual rate take that we're asking for in the year, which is consistent with what we had in the LTP, it is just going up. And even with that, we're still not paying all the operating costs, and we're still increasing the deficit.
Okay, so I should ask that question better. And the question was, is this because of a much skewed commercial rate to residential rate? Or valuation, actually, that would, well, maybe I just haven't done the maths in my head correct. That this looks like quite a different.
Yeah. The part of the reason why that, as Lloyd just pointed out, if one's 17 and one's 19, why it might be slightly different is that's probably because of the underlying rating valuation. But in theory, you know, if all things had stayed equal, they both would have gone up the same percentage.
Andrew.
Can I just follow that up with a question? When we adopted our last 10-year plan, previous council had made a commitment to increase the level of service projected in the future for passenger transport. Is that a fair comment?
So hence there was just year on year, there was those sort of, and I said roughly, 20% increases year on year for public transport, because we were already behind with deficits in both, and forecasting that those deficits continued and in fact increased through to about years 4 and 5 of the LTP. So this is all part of trying to get the operating funding to catch up.
All right. Any other questions then? Yep.
Look, very happy with the report. I just wonder, as a future, we seem to have reflected reasonably well the capital values of the residential and business properties, but our rural properties seem to be the examples that we give are right at the top end of any values.
Yeah.
So
that is something that I can adjust in future rates resolutions, the thresholds, that's fine. So they are just examples. They're not actually part of the rates resolution. Well, they're part of the paper, but they're not part of the legal rates resolution that's being passed.
Yeah.
But I can update those thresholds.
Yeah. Thank you. Anyone else? No.
I'm happy to move the two
Thank
recommendations.
you. We're receiving this report and the attached rating and sample reports and adopting the rating resolution for the 23-24 financial year. Somebody care to second Andrew's motion? Lloyd? And any debate on this?
From my perspective, it's all been said before. We've had plenty of other council meetings where we've, reinforced the reasons why we're continuing on their commitment that we made in the long-term plan, improving our level of service across various work streams. No, nothing more needs to be said.
Thank you. No one else wants to speak by the looks of it? No? Okay, we'll put those recommendations then. All in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Okay. Thank you very much. 8.9, which is the free and half price public transport fares paper. Welcome, Lauren. Thank you. Great paper that outlines to us the approach that will be taken in terms of implementing this scheme, I guess, policy. So is there anything that you'd particularly like to point out, Lorraine?
Thank you. No, I just take the paper as read, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Right, thank you. Are there any questions?
Just waiting for my paper.
Alexa probably does.
Happy to move the recommendations A to G. Sarah on.
Yep, there's a number there, aren't there?
Oh, it's taking forever.
And yeah, it's fantastic to
just
be
a question. Yeah.
Sure.
So just understanding the government contribution, if we have if we set a fare level, say that was based on the cost of the service, so which would be quite dramatically higher than what it is now. So if the government would pay half of that. So for instance, our fares at the moment are $1 or going to $2, but if our fares had been at $5, government would have paid half of that, providing that was within fair and reasonable operational costs.
Yeah, so that has been the situation for the past 2 years. And that finishes on the 1st of July. And this paper is about the extension of what is called the Community Connect program, and that is a further subsidisation of fares from a Crown appropriation, so definitely the government, and that is for providing free fares for under 13s and for half price fares for 13s to 24-year-olds.
Yeah. So that's based on the actual fare as opposed to the cost of that fare.
Yeah, so from the Crown appropriation, we get half of the actual fare.
Yep.
Essentially, though, our overall provision of the service is further funded 51% through Waka Kotahi through the NLT, the
Yep.
National Land Transport Fund.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. Thank you.
Kate.
I'm sorry, this is going backwards and being pedantic, but we had a trial. Our current funding is a trial. I thought that wasn't necessarily that we haven't, and the wording of number B is that we change the current fare policies, because what we've got now is a trial rather than the policy. I think. Have I got that right?
For which routes are you talking about?
In Dunedin, our current routes are a trial. The fares is a trial that we started,
Oh.
and
The $2 trial.
yeah, I'm just checking the wording.
That's right.
Yep.
I should have thought of this earlier. Apologies. Does that make sense? I'm just checking because this is changing what was a trial and putting in a new policy, which the policy was about a whole lot of different ranges of fares, which were quite different.
Through you,
Sure. Yeah.
You're new, and I don't expect that you need to. You don't own this problem.
I've learned a lot about the idiosyncrasies of our fare policies, but we have a flat fare trial for Dunedin, and we have flat fares in
Queensland
for the buses,
Yeah.
and for the ferries, but they're not the same flat fare. I think actually it's probably my fault here is that it's implementing the government funding policy for a differential fares, what they'll subsidise through Community Connect. So they've done it in 2 stages. They did it from the May 2022 budget, and then they changed it on May 1823. So that does change it. In terms of the flat fares trial, this is just, I guess, opting into the government scheme with the current fares trial, given that we are also working on the fares and frequency business case for Dunedin, which is looking at the combination of fares and frequency that will drive an uptake in public transport use consistent with what is coming out of the Shaping Future Transport. It's sort of adjusted slightly.
There are some semantics to it, except for when we and if we. So if we were to reinstate, say, the fare to Palmerston, the headline will be we're changing our policy and putting it up. Actually, we were just finishing a trial, and so the semantics in this is that we just need to make sure that we're not adopting a policy here, somewhat on the hoof without the necessary work. I appreciate that we're adopting the community, we're implementing Community Connect on the current trial Fears.
It just, doesn't it just say changing current fare policy? Yeah. So we're implementing the Community Connect extension for those demographics that
Yeah.
qualify,
Yeah.
thereby
based on
changing current fare policies. But a trial is a current fare policy, and
It
we're
is.
not.
I just,
yeah.
and we risk
not changing it.
over complicating something.
Yeah.
Because I think the critical thing is we're applying a new central government policy.
Yeah.
I do take your point, Kate, in reference to this in a resolution that might suggest a policy change, but I think we just want to get away from, if we did anything here, we would just look at, say, thereby changing current fears for people.
Yeah.
That's effectively what
Yes, I
applying.
think
So we
delete
can just
the word
remove the word
policies.
policy from B,
Yeah.
and then we don't risk muddying the fact that we have got a trial on our, which is
Yeah.
a policy decision on existing policy.
Yeah,
Changing
sorry.
current fares. So we just get rid of policies out of B. And that makes everyone happy, I think. Alexa.
Just checking, does this have any impact on people's current B card balances? I can't imagine that it does, but I just had to check.
It doesn't have an impact on their balances for the under 13, so 5 to 12-year-olds. Under 5 obviously currently are free and don't usually travel with a card, but for 5 to 12-year-olds who have a card, we have been messaging to only top up with what they need to use within a week, because obviously they will be free if they're travelling with
I
their
see, so
card.
they won't need anything on there. Yeah, that
Yeah.
answers that. Okay.
And also get a refund. No.
Refund is really difficult
Yeah.
across
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
integrated ticketing system. So they can hold the balance, but obviously it's quite difficult for young people to hold on to cards in my experience year to year, let alone holding on to the balance of them. But it doesn't affect their balance in any way.
Great, that was the plan.
So just on that though, if I am the parent of that said person who I've probably paid that $9 into their account anyway, can I then use that B card myself and spend that $9? I can use that anyway, can't I?
No.
No, it's got to be me.
I got one of those.
That's
really lovely-
Yeah.
the right answer.
You can, the balance can be transferred, but you can't use the card because the card has a
Yes,
possession applied to it.
Yeah.
So just to clarify, because that's a good point in terms of us being, offering that comes, so they can transfer a balance from one card to another. So in effect, they can make sure it does get used by someone else.
Yeah.
So there's still an option there to ensure that people who have maybe put a whole lot on it just to be organised don't lose out, and we can offer them a service that enables it to be used by someone else.
Yep. Tom.
Just in terms of the B cards, what percentage of patrons are using the B card as opposed to cash?
Okay, we've got this in our monthly network report. It's high. It's a high
Okay,
percentage,
so-
and we have I can get back to you with the exact
No,
numbers.
I'm just wondering about the impact of issuing free B cards and how many would be issuing for.
So we have a high number of users and a really high saturation for the population as a whole, but that's obviously skewed by the fact that a lot of tourists in Queenstown have purchased B cards at some stage and may or may not be continuing to use them because they've had them for a duration. So that the uptake, if you like, or the demand for a free B card will be monitoring.
Thank you.
Sorry, my only other question, and I'm sorry to be boorish and inconsistent, but I see there's a recommendation in relation to the April resolution. I sought at the time some reassurance that that resolution wouldn't refocus away from looking at other routes and other services regionally as per our regional passenger transport plan. Can I ask if, and I know it's not really part of this report, what is happening with planning for or consideration of other routes in Otago?
The fares and frequencies is obviously looking at the Dunedin network.
Mhm.
The Queenstown Public Transport business cases looking at the Wakatipu network. And beyond that, there's no provision for, and we have provision for looking at Wanaka on demand, but at the moment we're supporting the trial. Yep. And beyond that, we have limited financial provision for planning other services, but we are working at staff level with our counterparts in Central Otago and in Waitaki in particular around the accessibility needs there. And that is partly to inform the regional public and active transport connectivity strategy to be prepared for the Public and Active Transport Committee.
Any other questions then? Thank you. Yeah, I can't remember if someone moved it and seconded it. Did they, Kylie? No. So we got Andrew wanting to move.
I
and
moved it earlier.
Oh, you did? Yeah, I thought we did.
Did you have a second?
Elliot, I think I did. Putting Elliot.
Yeah, rightio.
That's running
Andrew
late,
and
isn't it?
Elliot. Thanks, everyone. So that's A2G. Any debate?
I'll just look
Yep.
briefly. The government are about to remove the fuel subsidy imposed, made available to New Zealanders during the COVID times, and in return, we have this Community Connect extension, which is obviously a very good initiative, whether you're between 5 and 24, total mobility, under 13, superannuitant. It's a great opportunity to lift the level of patronage for passenger transport right across New Zealand, which obviously has positive impacts on not only the roading network, but the environment as well. So thank you.
Thank you. It's great to be in a position where we can be one of the can-do councils that can implement this straight away as well. So there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes to get to that point. So thank you very much on behalf of everyone for making that happen, Lorraine, as well. Right, so anyone else then wanting to say anything? No. Okay, we got A to G there. We'll put them all in favour. Aye, against, carried. This is the next paper, which is the extra paper. So this is possibly you as well, Lorraine, on contract for Unit 5.
Extension.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, yeah, this one's fine because we've had that discussion previously.
Cool.
It's just a change of date.
So just by way of explanation, we reported, I got the date in front of me, in about February, that we were, the contract's up for renewal. We had been asked to do it within 12 months. We got that approved by council. We subsequently reported to Waka Kotahi that, yes, we're all good to do that. And they said, we'd quite like you to make it 24 months. So it's just getting your approval to change the 12 months that you had previously approved.
Sure. Good one. Where's that?
The extra time is
Recommendations.
to improve the chances of making it a competitive tender process.
Yep. Andrew.
Just a question, Lorraine. Is it another positive aspect of the extension of 12 months to allow potential contractors to be more fit for purpose to transition to zero emission buses, i.e. having the appropriate infrastructure, the appropriate buses, etc. So is that another positive spin-off?
Yes, it's definitely a positive spin. Yeah.
Elliot.
I noticed that as well in the report, but I was wondering what mechanisms are sort of driving that investment. is it just the fact that we could pick someone else for a contract, or I'm just wondering what's driving their uptake of electric vehicles over the extra 12 months?
I'm not sure if I understand, so just read me if I'm wrong. So we are required to decarbonise the fleets by 2035, and there's limitations on new vehicles that we can bring in from 2025. So that's across all contractors, and but having a longer period to procure the next thing gives more opportunity, because across the country, but particularly I guess in Dunedin, the current operators that we have, where we talk to them regularly around investment in with their fleets as a whole across the country, but also in particular their charging facilities and infrastructure here. And it be fair to say that it will allow them more time to get either both operators more time to develop their infrastructure assets and their depots for electric charging, and also to get fleet vehicles in.
Requirement for 2035, where's that coming from? Is that the FG?
Yeah.
FGTF, yeah, cool. Okay. That's thanks.
Okay, no one else. Right, we've got noting the report and approving the extension to the contract to an expiry of 30th of June 2025. All in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Oh, sorry, it must be getting too late. I was sure we had one that time. It must have been you, Andrew.
No, I was waiting for Elliot to.
Yeah.
Very happy
I was
to
gonna
do
second
that.
Thank you. 10.1 is chairperson's report, which can be taken as read. I ran out of time on some things, so I can provide extra information as well if anyone wants.
Computer's gone down.
Yeah. But pretty much there just for your information. Happy to talk about format of this in the future as well. Richard's had a revamp of the Chief Executive's report, but it'd be good to have a bit of time to talk about what's helpful in terms of both of our reporting, but we can leave that. Yeah, leave that for another time. Thanks.
What it does show, I mean, we all have roles outside of the council, and while this is work, and none of us are putting in our reports from the outside committees we may have a council role on.
Right.
And that's another area that possibly you have to look at. I mean, given the instances, the exemplar project, which I've absolutely no doubt Kevin's doing a fantastic job on, but I have no idea what he's doing on that. And we don't have that clearinghouse or position where and it doesn't have to be a written report.
Yeah, no,
It would be good to get those updates occasionally in some form.
that's right. Yeah, we can talk about that as well, because we haven't got a formal space for reports back from councillors. And you're right, Kate, there's some that have been appointed to things formally where perhaps reporting back would be useful. So, yeah, I mean, I'll remember to note that, and we'll talk about that. You got that one, Amanda? Yeah, thank you.
I found two sentences.
Sure.
Speaking about. Are we just on the chairperson's report?
Yeah, that's right, and then we'll move to Richard's, which is more important probably this time.
It's really helpful to have this, but yeah, I do think it would be good to have some of the councillor ones as well.
Yeah, well, let's have a think about how we all structure this, but it's a requirement to have a chair report as part of standing orders. But how it's presented to you and what's important, let's talk about that later.
Happy to move, Chairperson.
Thank you.
move it.
Seconded Andrew, all in favour, aye, against, carried, thank you. And we are on to the Chief Executive's report.
Thanks, Gretchen. So, yeah, as it's been noted, I've changed the format slightly, and I'm more than happy to take feedback on it. Just noting, thank you to councillors and staff and mana whenua for the welcome earlier in the month, which was a great day for myself and my family who attended. Good first month, busy first month. So what I've tried to do is leave the commentary a little bit lighter, although noting I have just made some comment in there around reform or legislative change, and some of that we've discussed today and others we will keep an eye on, but really focus the report on those key project attachments, the service level report and financials. And we will have a look at how this goes, and obviously happy to take feedback into the 2023-24 year to ensure that this gives you all a good oversight of some of these key activities, and we can add or subtract things as required, but just happy to take questions.
Oh, sorry, Kevin.
Yeah, look, yeah, Richard, look, thanks very much indeed for the new format and the way you presented it. My only comment on it would be is to ensure that this is taken from stuff that is being already generated, and that we're not duplicating work. But if this is available and it's push button stuff that you're generating anyway, I think it's magic. So thanks very much, and that gives me some real clarity on what's happening as a snapshot, and that can formulate ways going forward or questions that I have. So no, thanks very much, and keep the good work out for quite a while to come. More than four and a half years.
Tom.
Yeah, I want to compliment you on this too, Richard. I think you're covering off the key areas, the key milestones that are important to this organisation and important to this council. We need to have an eye on all those things. So the land and water management plan, the long-term plan, and then you've got also the milestones out of the annual plan, which are really important for us to keep track on. Exactly. So, but and in that light, just looking at that, the May performance of our annual plan, you've got a few reds in your graph, your status by activity. I'm just wondering if you might be able to just take us through some of those, if you could.
Yeah, I can do. So this is the way we've reported this is an exception on the last report received at the quarterly report at the Finance Committee. So again, we can have a look at whether this as a standalone, referencing back to what you saw at the previous committee, is the right format. But in terms of the changes since the previous Q3 report, we have had a few two in particular, tip from orange into red. And one of those, as that top blue line, has been is related to the future development strategy. It's being prioritised, so won't now occur by 30 June this year. It will be picked up later. And then the second one is relating to biodiversity, and we've had ongoing challenges around the landing of the national policy statement on just biodiversity, and whether or not we carry on with work related to that ahead of it being gazetted, or we wait. In this instance, we did have a measure that was included on the basis we felt we would have that document, because it has been coming, I think, almost since I joined ORC, but it still hasn't. So therefore, the work hasn't commenced and won't meet that measure. So we put an explanation in there, and you would have heard the auditors discuss that the other day. We put an explanation in there and worked through that with the auditors as to why a measure hasn't been met, and then they obviously just consider that in terms of any feedback. So those are the two. You will see the other ones in there. One has gone green, which is a positive. But we will obviously do a full and final report on those service levels, which will include all of the levels that are indicated up in that top graph. And that'll be at the next Finance Committee meeting.
Richard, what was the, just looking at the ear column, we've got a read on that one. What was that relating to?
I don't have the full list on me, sorry.
Okay.
So I think that, yeah, I mean, that again, in terms of format, whether we start reporting on all reads as a way of just acknowledging what they are, but I'll take that back for consideration for the next report.
I think that'd be a good idea if you can bring all the reads on sort of thing. Thank you.
Gary.
Yeah, thank you. Richard, I think that's excellent. I really like the format. The only other concern, as was raised, whether it was too onerous to provide that. If it isn't, then that's a really useful update on the council rotation. So thanks very much.
Yeah, just to Kevin and the Gary's comments, these are all reports that we will put in as a matter of course for the business. So, very conscious of not adding additional work to staff workloads. These are part of either managing of projects currently or reporting that's undertaken on a monthly basis by Nick's teams for the service levels.
Right. Yeah, it's a great step forward, I think, in terms of our ability to track performance across the organisation in a timely manner. So really appreciate that. Are there any other comments on the Chief Executive's report? Sure. Moved Councillor Noon, seconded Councillor Meepham. Lloyd. Oh, you're just moving.
I think it's awesome. Thank you very much.
Good one. Thank you. Okay, well, we'll put that. All in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Okay, I just now need to move to that we go into public excluded for the reasons given. There are 3 papers there, as I explained earlier on, and the reason for the third and last one is the same as the other ones. It's to protect the the third one is the Port Director approval. The reason for all of them is section 7.2a around protecting the privacy of natural persons. Somebody, I'm moving, Kate seconding. Michael, did you have something to say?
Yes, yes, I do. I'd like to oppose this motion on the basis that the provision is being misused by the Otago Regional Council relating to the privacy of natural persons. The 3 persons under consideration are to be appointed as iwi representatives to Otago Regional Council committees. They are publicly funded positions that will play a public role and will have key decision-making roles over the next 2.5 years. To appoint them and to claim that these 3 individuals require privacy when they go through a approval process, which is what it is today rather than a selection process, is misusing the Local Government Official Information Act and Meetings Act, and frustrates the purpose of open and transparent local government. For that reason, I cannot agree to go into committee on this issue.
Where?
Just wanted to refute that by saying that although they are likely about to become publicly funded representatives, they are not currently at this point until we have that vote. And so the moment up until that vote, their privacy needs to be protected under legislation.
Thank you. Right. Okay. Anyone else want to comment at this point? No, we've got a mover and a seconder. All in favour? Aye. Against?
No.
Sure. Yep.
Recorded, please.
Sure.
And I will withdraw from the council now for this further meeting.
Okay, we will record that as well. Thank you. We are going into public excluded.